Alright, gang, we're going to be watching the Trump Townhall. People say he got ambushed here. Let's get started.
At our ABC News Town Hall meeting in Philadelphia. Topic A, the coronavirus.
Okay.
Student Johnny Powell asked him this question.
If you believe it's the president's responsibility to protect America, why would you downplay a pandemic that is known to disproportionately harm low-income families and minority communities?
Yeah. Well, I didn't.
Alright, just right off the bat right here. The reason why it disproportionately affects the colored people is because the people that are minorities tend to live in the cities. This goes for Mexicans, blacks, Asians, Jews, whatever. And frankly, if you're in a city, you're more likely to get coronavirus. And if you're black, you're more likely to live in a city, therefore get the coronavirus, right? Common sense. Oh, the virus is racist, or because of systemic racism we have this. No, of course not. That's gay. Wrong. It's fake news.
Downplay it. I actually, in many ways, I upplayed it in terms of action. My action was very strong. Yeah, because what I did was, with China, I put a ban on. With Europe, I put a ban on. And we would have lost thousands of more people had I not put the ban on. So that was called action, not with the mouth, but in actual fact.
Ooh.
We did a very, very good job when we put that ban on. Whether you call it talent or luck, it was very important. So we saved a lot of lives when we did that.
There were holes in the ban, and the European ban didn't come for another month.
Well, they were Americans. I mean, the holes in were if you have somebody in China that's an American citizen, we had to let them in.
President campaigning as if the pandemic is a thing of the past, summoning large crowds of supporters, packed shoulder to shoulder, most not wearing masks. In an interview in Nevada, he said he wasn't personally worried about getting coronavirus, but didn't say anything about the threat to his supporters.
Aren't you concerned about getting COVID, though, in close way?
No, I'm not concerned.
What about
I'm more concerned about how close you are, to be honest.
Sorry about that.
Because you know why? I'm on a stage, it's very far away. And so I'm not at all concerned.
Joe Biden is back
exactly. They all consent to be there.
But in a very different way. Today holding a roundtable with veterans in Tampa, Florida. Participants sitting at least 6 feet apart.
And everybody paid attention to it. I'm just kidding.
Up front with the American people about the virus.
False promises, not leveling about tough things are going to be. The American people have never failed to step up to what had to be done when it had to be done. But that's not happening now.
And Biden hit the president over the report in The Atlantic, denied by the White House, that he called war heroes suckers and losers.
Nowhere are his faults more glaring and more offensive, to me at least, than when it comes to his denigration of our service members.
That's not even proven, you retard. Stop with that rhetoric.
Florida may be the closest and most important battleground of all. Michael Bloomberg is spending $100 million.
Alright, on to the next video. Jesus Christ. Alright.
Julie Bart, who's from Gibsonia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
She's right here. She has a question about that. You voted for Hillary Clinton last time, I believe.
Yes, I did. The wearing of masks has proven to lessen the spread of COVID. Why don't you support a mandate for national mask wearing? And why don't you wear a mask more often?
Well, how he should answer this, right? I should do this format. You get this question, you should say this. Not only is it illegal, it's unconstitutional. And then, if you voted for Hillary, just know that the Democratic candidate, Joe Biden, has backed off of the statement of the national mask mandate because it is illegal, it is unconstitutional. And then, you should probably say that a national mask mandate will not put over the fact that some judges will strike it down, making it useless, as well as it sets a precedent for more draconian rules in the future without good justification. And I guess you could do like the whole, well, if I can force you to wear a mask, I can force you to take off of a job, wouldn't we want that? But no, don't include that. Don't pander to the left, but just be reasonable. Say it's literally illegal, it's past my power. Tell your governor to do that, not me.
Well, I do wear them when I have to and when I'm in hospitals and other locations, but I will say this. They said at the Democrat convention they're going to do a national mandate. They never did it because they've checked out and they didn't do it. And a good question is you ask like Joe Biden, they said, we're going to do a national mandate on masks.
He's called on all governors to have them. It is a state responsibility.
Well, no, but he didn't do it. I mean, he never did it. Now, there is, by the way, a lot of people don't want to wear masks. There are a lot of people think the masks are not good. And there are a lot of people that, as an example,
who are those people?
I'll tell you who those people are. Waiters. They come over and they serve you, and they have a mask. And I saw it the other day where they were serving me. And they're playing with the mask. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying what happens. They're playing with the mask, and so the mask is over, and they're touching it, and then they're touching the plate. That can't be good. There are a lot of people. If you look at Dr. Fauci's original statement, you look at a lot of people, CDC, you look at a lot of people's original statement, they said very strongly, George, don't wear masks. Then all of a sudden they went to wear masks. The concept of a mask is good, but it also does, you're constantly touching it, you're touching your face, you're touching plates. There are people that don't think masks are good.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos.
All right, this short ass. Okay, all right, not bad, not bad. This one says Trump on him doing a tremendous job. I'll see how he explains this exactly.
Mr. President, I voted for you in 2016. I'm conservative, pro-life, and diabetic. I've had to dodge people who don't care about social distancing and wearing face masks. I thought you were doing a good job with the pandemic response until about May 1st. Then you took your foot off the gas pedal. Why did you throw vulnerable people like me under the bus?
Well, we really didn't, Paul. We've worked
That's
very
in bad
hard
faith,
in the pandemic. We've worked very hard. It came off from China. They should have never let it happen. And if you look at what we've done with ventilators and now, frankly, with vaccines, we're very close to having a vaccine. If you want to know the truth, the previous administration would have taken perhaps years to have a vaccine because of the FDA and all the approvals.
That's not what he's asking about.
Could be 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
He's probably just obfuscating buying time right now. This isn't a good response so far.
Great companies, and they're very, very close. It's been it's a terrible thing. But if you look at, as an example, are you from New York? Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from New York. I've lived in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania for 18 and a half years. It's the longest place I've ever lived.
Well, that's very good. It's a good place. But actually, if you look at what we've done for various things, we built hospitals. New York, we took the convention center, converted it to 2,800 rooms. We brought in the ships. I wish they would have used it because, frankly, they would have saved a lot of people had they used it. But we really are. We're starting to get very good marks. If you look at what we've done compared to other countries with the excess mortality rate, we've done very, very well. When you see our testing, we're going to be at 84 million tests, 84 million, think of that. And next would be India with about 50 million less. Our testing program's far greater. I brought this along today because I think it's something that's really very special. We have a new test. It came out literally today. That's just showing you numbers of how well we're doing relative to other countries. But this is actually a new test. Just came out from Abbott. Highly sophisticated. You wouldn't think. It's a piece of really little light cardboard. And this came out, and this is a very accurate test, and people will be able to have this, and they'll be able to test or ideally go through a doctor, but it's very simple and very accurate. And we supplied governors, including this state, with equipment like nobody's ever gotten. We were short on ventilators because the cupboards were bare when we took it over. And we're now making thousands of ventilators a month, many thousands, and we're sending them. We don't need them in our country anymore. Not one person that needed a ventilator didn't get a ventilator. Everybody got a ventilator.
How fast he's talking is saving the lack of substance.
They're very hard to make, but we're making out tens.
Like the confidence of what he's saying is very good. He's selling it very well. Like, he's not selling anything, but he's like presenting well.
I feel that we've
That's saving him. Joe Biden, even if he's right, can't articulate it as well. Not even close.
I don't think it's been recognized like it should. When you look at our testing, when you look at our swabs, when you look at our ventilators, when you look at what we've done with hospitals, and we've made a lot of governors look very good, and now some are in a shutdown and some aren't. We'd like to see it open up and open up as soon as possible. But we're very proud of the job we've done, and we've saved a lot of lives, a tremendous number of lives.
Mr. President, you mentioned a number of things, so let's talk about the mortality first, because you said we're doing better in mortality than other countries. But here's this chart right here. It shows the United States is right here. This is number of deaths per million residents. Here's Western Europe here, Canada, way down there. We're not at the top of the list.
The excess mortality rate is among the best in the whole world, George. I mean, I can show you. There's a chart that just came out a little while ago. Excess mortality rate is compared to Europe, compared to other places, it's about 25% better. In one case, it's over 60% better. And we also have a very big country. You know, we're talking about a lot bigger than most countries. When you look at testing, just as an example, when India does 40 million less tests than us, they have 1.5 billion people. China, you don't get the accurate numbers out of China, but China, they lost a lot of people. They just don't say what they
we have 4% of the world's population, more than 20% of the cases, more than 20% of the deaths.
Because we're testing.
20% of the cases because of the fact that we do much more testing.
Exactly.
If you wouldn't do testing, you wouldn't have cases. You would have very few cases.
If you die of COVID in Africa, they're not going to
These are
know.
actual cases.
Well, Dr. Fauci said we've done a fantastic job. He just said it yesterday, actually. He said we've done a fantastic job, that we didn't mislead anybody. Now, I'm not going to make people feel like I want to look. We're the leader of a great country. We want to keep it that way. I don't want to scare people. I don't want to make people panic. And you're not going to go out and say, oh, this is death, death, death. You have to run a country. We're in a country. We got hit by something very unfairly. What I noticed were yesterday, Dr. Fauci said that we've done a really good job and we didn't mislead anybody. He came out with that statement, which I appreciate. But whether it's Dr. Fauci or anybody else, a lot of people got it wrong. They talked about don't wear masks, and now they say wear masks, although some people say don't wear masks. I mean, you have a lot of different ideas. Some people say just leave it the way it is and don't do any shutdowns, and other people say do shutdowns. And I have my own views on that.
But what did you get wrong? You say a lot of people got things wrong. I mean, you mentioned China at the top right there. All through January and February, you were downplaying by your own admission the severity of the crisis, that you didn't want to panic people.
Not downplaying.
But let me just finish the question first.
Not downplaying. I don't want to drive our nation into a panic. I'm a cheerleader for this nation. I'm the one that closed up our country. I closed it up long before any of the experts thought I should, and saved hundreds of thousands of lives. But when I closed it, I put a ban on our country, and the ban was a very important ban because China was heavily infected. And nobody, by the way, I read where other people said do it. No people that I saw said do it, and I know they said security advisors and others. I put a ban on when it wasn't at all popular. Joe Biden said I was xenophobic because I put the ban on. And I thought that was a very unfair, and by the way, he's totally taken that back. But I'm not sure he knows what it means.
I want to ask you about China, though, because at that time, you were actually praising President Xi. You were saying he was transparent, you were saying he was strong, you were saying he was doing a good job. Did you get that wrong? Did you misjudge President Xi?
I don't think I did. We just finished a trade deal. We just had the largest order of corn in the history of our country last week, the largest order of soybeans, largest order of beef. Because they know I'm very unhappy. They know. But
you said he was doing a good job, and now you're blaming China.
No, I didn't say one way or the other. I'm not saying one way or the other. At the beginning, before anybody knew what it was, I spoke with President Xi, and he said, we are doing it well, we are having it under control, and I was very open with that. He told me that it was under control, that everything was, and it turned out to be not true, because it wasn't under control. It went all over the world, 188 countries. So I didn't say anything bad about President Xi initially because nobody knew much about the disease. Nobody knew the seniors are susceptible. They thought people would be susceptible, but not just, the seniors are really a very, very endangered group of people, especially if they have problems with hearts or diabetes or any of that.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for...
He finds a way to not answer it well the first half of the question, and then he brings it back around pretty solidly. I think this is because of some sort of boardroom experience. He knows how to not BS, but kind of articulate things in a way that sounds like he's completely confident in what he's saying.
Pal right here, she's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you actually haven't voted before. How are you?
Hello, hi. My question is, if you believe it's the president's responsibility to protect America, Why would you downplay a pandemic?
Anything I could have done differently, anything.
I think we could have had 2 million deaths if we didn't close out the country.
So you regret not
closing? No, I think we did a great job. If we didn't close the country, look, I created, we all created together. You helped everybody. The fact is, we created the greatest economy in the history of the world. Best employment numbers for African American, Asian American, Hispanic American women, everything. The best employment, high school, no high school, college. We had the best economy we've ever had. 160 million people, almost just short of 160 million people. We were never close. And then somebody comes in, and then somebody else, doctors, and they start talking about the pandemic and about closing. They want to close up our country. I said, wait a minute. We have the greatest country, the greatest economy, and it was coming together even in terms of unity because it was so successful that people that weren't getting along were starting to get along, George. That's the way we solved that problem. But we had the greatest economy ever, and we have to close it. If I didn't close it, I think you'd have 2 million deaths instead of having the 185, 190. It's a terrible number.
Many experts say if we would have had more mitigation earlier on, there would have been fewer deaths.
George, I was so far ahead of my closing, and I'll give you an example. When I closed at the end of January,
how would he have known?
Biden was talking about in March about it's totally over-exaggerated. Nancy Pelosi was standing in the streets of Chinatown in San Francisco late, a month, more than a month after that, saying this thing's totally exaggerated, come, to try and build up tourism. And all of these
you were saying it was going to disappear.
What?
You were saying it was going to disappear.
I don't think he said that. He said he was hoping.
It's going to disappear.
I still say if we don't take action, correct?
No, I still say it. It's going to disappear, George. We're going to get back. We're not going to have studios like this. We have all of this empty space in between. I want to see people, and you want to see people. I want to see football games. I'm pushing very hard for Big Ten. I want to see Big Ten open, let the football games, let them play sports. But no, it's going to disappear, George.
But Dr. Fauci, and I think we have to be prepared we have to hunker down. We have to be prepared for a possible second wave. I understand that you don't want to panic people.
Second wave is gay. Something happened.
We've often talked about Winston Churchill and FDR, and they did reassure people. They were strong. They did keep people calm, but they also were straight. They said this war is going to be tough. It's going to be a real fight. We have to persevere.
So when Churchill was on the top of a building,
the virus is not even close to as bad as even the mildest war. Jesus.
The Nazis dropping bombs all over London. He was very brave because he was at the top of a building. It was very well known that he was standing on buildings and they were bombing. And he says everyone's going to be safe. I don't think that's being necessarily honest, and yet I think it's being a great leader. But he said, you're going to be safe, be calm, don't panic. And you had bombers dropping bombs all over London. So I guess you could say that's not so honest, but it's still great leadership.
So do you think it's okay to be dishonest?
I'm not looking to be dishonest. I don't want people to panic, and we are going to be okay. We're going to be okay, and it is going away, and it's probably going to go away now a lot faster because of the vaccine. It would go away without the vaccine, George, but it's going to go away a lot faster with it.
Go away without the vaccine?
Sure, over a period of time.
Herd immunity.
It goes
many deaths.
And you'll develop herd, like a herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed, and that's going to happen. That will all happen. But with the vaccine, I think it will go away very quickly.
Got to take a quick break.
But I really believe we're rounding the corner, and I believe that's strong.
As you know, Dr. Fauci disagrees with that.
Well, I mean, but a lot of people do agree with me.
Fauci's his entire life is about COVID. Of course, he's not going to play it down.
From Stanford, look at some of the other doctors. They think maybe we could have done that from the beginning. I think we did it exactly right. We closed it up. Now we're opening, and we're opening up to a super V because the numbers are fantastic. The employment numbers, you look at, we hired 10.4 million jobs in 4 months. That's a record by far. We have every record. Retail sales are through the roof. We have every record. We did the right thing. If we didn't close it up, I believe we'd have 2 million, 2.5, maybe 3 million deaths.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here.
And George is quiet about this. All right. Great so far. Solid, 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 solid. All right. He's going to respond to a question about racial inequalities or the theory of them, because that's not really a truth.
He's from Philadelphia, voted for Jill Stein last time.
Oh, my God. Jill Stein, you're kidding me.
You've coined the phrase, make America great again. When has America been great for African Americans in the ghetto of America?
Bruh.
Are you aware of how tone deaf that comes off to African American community?
Well, I can say this, we have tremendous African American support. You've probably seen it in the polls. We're doing extremely well with African American, Hispanic American at levels that you've rarely seen a Republican have. If you talk about Make America Great, if you look at just prior to, and I'm talking about for the black community, you look just prior to this horrible situation coming in from China, when the virus came in, that was probably the highest point, home ownership for the black community. Home ownership, lower crime, the best jobs they've ever had, highest income, the best employment numbers they've ever had. If you go back and you want to look over many years, you could just go back 6 or 7 months from now. That was the best single moment in the history of the African American people in this country, I think, I would say.
Well, I mean, your statement is, though, make it great again. So historically, the African-American experience, especially in these ghettos that have been redlined, historically, these ghettos that have systemically been set up and treated the way that they have.
Yeah, just blame the white people, you effing
guns
loser.
And everything else that actually created the symptoms for what we see.
Yeah, it's the white man's fault, the gun's fault, not you.
Just the democratic cities in themselves. These things have historically been happening for African Americans in these ghettos, and we have not been seeing a change. Quite frankly, under your administration, under the Obama's administration, under the Bush, under the Clinton, the very same things happen, and the very same systems and cycles continue to ensue. And we need to see, because you say again, we need to see when was that great, because that pushes us back to a time in which we cannot identify with such greatness. And I mean, you've said everything else about
were the 80s not
else, but you have
were the 80s not great?
That there's been a race problem in America.
So if you go, well, I hope there's not a race problem. I can tell you there's none with me, because I have great respect for all races, for everybody. This country is great because of it. But when you go back 6 months and you take a look at what was happening, you can't even compare that with past administrations. When you look at income levels and a lot of things, because of the job situation where they had the lowest income, the best unemployment numbers they've ever had, the black community by far. And that was solving a lot of problems. And you know what else it was bringing people together. I was starting to get, just before this was, we were having a long run of success, I was starting to get calls from Democrats that, hey, it's starting to work. Let's get together. People that you would never have thought this would have happened with. There was going to be unity, but unfortunately that was hurt because we got set back. But now, I think next year is going to be one of our best years economically.
But income equality is still, income equality is higher. So I mean, jobs can be produced, but at the same time, in a lot of these big major cities where African Americans are underserved, under-resourced, that's an $8 hour job. Does not mean that they can necessarily afford to live where they have to live or where they've been living.
If you're making more money, you're making more money. Who cares if other people are growing faster than you, right?
But if you look at
what a loser.
Obama and Biden, the income inequality was phenomenal. It was record-setting. It's
getting worse now.
Well, we're talking about a plague coming in. Before the plague, we were doing very well. Now, we will soon be doing well again because we're going to have a fantastic third quarter. You're seeing the numbers come in. I think you're going to have a GDP that's mid-20s and maybe much higher. Somebody said 35. I don't know. These are all records we're talking about. And you're going to have a very good, economically, you're going to have a very good year next year. But I agree with a lot of the things you say, but you have to look back because we really had it going well. Had we not been hit by this horrible disease that came into our land, and all over the world, by the way, came all over the world, we would be in a position where I think income inequality would be different. It was really getting there. We were really driving it down.
We have to move on. But even before the pandemic, the average black family was earning half of what the average white family was earning, even if you hold education constant.
You're right. I can only compare it to the past. The African American, the black community was doing better than it had ever done by far, both in terms of
dead on, exactly.
Home ownership.
Just say, was it better before or not?
In terms of
but there was still a gap between blacks and whites.
I mean, there was a gap, but we were doing a good job. It was getting better. And then it was artificially shut down by this disease that came onto our land. Hi, everyone.
Okay,
George
good rhetoric.
Here. Thanks for...
See, he has plausible deniability. Look, the economy was getting better. And okay, fine, there was a gap, but are you not being hired? Are you not making more money, blacks? Like, come on.
Who's always voted Republican for president? Laura, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. President. Martin Luther King Jr. once famously wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." In the light of the ongoing protests surrounding the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the recent shooting of Jacob Blake, do you feel racial injustices are occurring in this nation? And if so, what can be done to address them?
Well, I think they were tragic events, and I do feel that we have to also take into consideration that if you look at our police, they do a phenomenal job. You'll have people choke, make mistakes, and they happen. It happens where they have to make a fast decision and some bad things happen. And you also have bad apples, but you have 99% great people. I know the police forces very well. I think almost every one of them, if you look, I've been endorsed by so many of them. And these are great people. And I will say this, if you're going to stop crime, we have to give the respect back to the police that they deserve. They've done a fantastic job in so many locations, but then bad things happen. Look at New York. New York was a very safe city. Rudy Giuliani did a fantastic job. The city was safe, and then all of a sudden we have a mayor who starts cutting the police force, and crime is up 100%, 150%. I saw one form of crime up 300%. So I think it's very important, whether you talk Seattle, where they have very good police, but they're not allowed to do their job. You have to allow the police to do their job. I agree with you, those events are terrible, but we have to allow the police to do their job. Otherwise, crime
pretty good,
is going
yeah.
to soar.
All right, good response.
Now, the problem is that in Democrat, usually liberal Democrat-run cities, we have tremendous problems. The top 10 most unsafe cities are run by Democrats. You go into the top 25 and top 35, almost every one of them is run by Democrats. No cash bail, just weak policies on crime. We have to give the police the respect that they deserve, and we have to give them their mojo. We have to let them protect us. How about that horrible crime that took place 2 days ago, where this terrible human being walks up to a police car with two people sitting in the car, and he starts shooting bullets right through the glass, right in their face, and just it has destroyed. I mean, I hear they're going to make it, but they're going to have a hard time ever being the same.
Mr. President, you're right.
And it's just a terrible thing.
That was monstrous. There's no question about that. But a lot of people look at the statistics.
But that's a lack of respect. When somebody can do that, that's a lack of respect. There's no retribution. They feel there's no retribution. This guy walks up to a police car and he starts shooting point-blank range at two innocent people. You can't let that happen. You have to be very tough on crime when it comes to things.
Tough on crime, but also obey the rules and regulations for policing. And you talk about police choking, you talk about bad apples, but a lot of people look at the statistics. Black Americans more than 3 times more likely than white Americans to be killed by police.
Well, they do more crime.
That indicates that this just isn't bad apples. This just isn't choking. This is a real systemic endemic
black crime problem. Yeah, you're right.
What do you do to address it?
So I just saw a poll where African Americans in this country, black communities, are 81% in favor of having more police. They want more police. They want protection. They suffer more than anybody else by bad police protection. All minorities, whether it's Hispanic or black or Asian, they suffer more than anybody else, George. We have to give the police back the authority to stop crime. When you have something like in Portland where it's just night after night, I could stop that with the people we have in a half an hour if they'd let me do that, but they don't.
What'd you do?
Bring in the
crack some
National
skulls.
Bring it in, and we would stop that within. Well, we did it in Minneapolis. Take a look at Minneapolis.
But how do you stop police killing blacks at 3 times the rate of killing whites?
You can't. You can't.
I can only say this, that the police in this country have done generally a great job.
He's not breaking out the FBI crime statistics.
There are problems, and there are chokers. They choke under
I
pressure.
bet he knows the crime stats, and he just doesn't want to rub blacks the wrong way. And again,
and that's a terrible thing.
He's optical right now.
The problem is that'll be on the news for 2 weeks or 3 weeks in a row, and the hundreds of thousands and thousands of good acts, nobody talks about it.
So you didn't think that's a sign of systemic racism?
No, I think there's problems, but I also think there's some very big problems where if you don't give the police back their authority, right now, police are afraid they're going to lose their pension, they're going to lose their job if they talk to somebody in the wrong way. When I watch New York, the New York City police endorsed me, and I love them. They're
one
great
group
people.
of the New York City police.
But I watched 6 months ago policemen walking down the street, and people were dumping water on their head. They had absolutely no fear. There was no retribution. I thought it was a low point. I thought it was a low point for New York City's finest. And frankly, those cops should have turned around and really done something.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for
Alright, done something. Crack Skulls, Law and Order. It might look unoptical, but I think this is really good, honestly, backing up the cops. This is a question over pre-existing conditions, blah, blah, blah.
A Block. She's from Philadelphia, an assistant professor who voted for Hillary Clinton last time.
Hi, Mr. President. I was born with a disease called sarcoidosis. And from the day I was born, I was considered uninsurable. That disease started in my skin, moved to my eyes, into my optic nerves, and when I went to graduate school, into my brain. When it hit my brain, I was automatically eligible for disability for the rest of my life. I chose instead to get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, and become a professor.
She's so proud of herself. Wow, you're so smart, huh, fat black lady.
Problems. It cost me, with co-pays, I'm still paying almost $7,000 a year in addition to the co-pay, and should pre-existing conditions which Obamacare brought to fruition be removed?
No.
Please stop and let me finish my question, sir.
Shut up.
Should that be removed?
Oh, God.
Within a 36
Don't ever talk to the president like
hour
that.
period without my medication, I will be dead. And I want to know what it is that you're going to do to assure that people like me who work hard, we do everything we're supposed to do.
Except get fat. You're not doing yourself any favors, dude. Just die.
It's not my fault that I'm a black woman and in the medical community,
who cares?
Minimized and not taken seriously. I want to know what
Of course you're taken seriously. Just look at you. You're imposing.
You are taken seriously.
Exactly.
And we are not going to hurt anything having to do with pre-existing conditions. We're not going to hurt pre-existing conditions.
I love his eye contact. That's powerful. Look at that. He has balls.
If you look at what they want to do, where they have socialized medicine, they will get rid of pre-existing conditions. If they go into Medicare for All, which is socialized medicine, and you can forget about your doctors and your plans, just like you could forget under President Obama. He said you can have your doctor, you can have your plan, and that turned out to be a lie. And he said it 28 different times, at least. We have 28 different times.
Got him.
You can have your doctor, you can have your plan. Well, it's not true. But what we're doing is we're going to be doing a health care plan, pre-existing, protecting people with pre-existing conditions. As an example, yourself. It sounds like that's exactly.
I do everything I can for my health, and but not lose weight or wear a mask. Right? Look at how she has it around her ear. Look at this, left ear.
They will not do that because they have socialized.
I have to stop you there.
Socialized.
I just have to stop you there because it's just on a couple of points. Number one, Joe Biden has ran against Medicare for All in the primaries, but much more importantly, Obamacare guaranteed people with pre-existing conditions could buy insurance, guaranteed they could buy it at the same price as everyone else, guaranteed a package of essential benefits, guaranteed that insurance companies couldn't put a lifetime limit on those benefits. You fought to repeal Obamacare. You are arguing.
Well, I essentially did.
You're arguing in the Supreme Court right now to strike it down. That would do away with pre-existing conditions.
So we can do new health care.
But you've been promising a new health care plan. I interviewed you in June of last year. You said the health care plan would come in 2 weeks. You told Chris Wallace that this summer it would come in 3 weeks. You promised an executive order on pre-existing.
I have it already.
But you've been trying to strike down pre-existing conditions.
I have it already, and it's a much better plan for you, and it's a much better plan.
What is it?
You say Obamacare. I got rid of the individual mandate, which is the worst part of Obamacare.
You're striking down the whole law.
Wouldn't be pertain to you, but it pertained to a lot of people where they were going literally bust because they didn't want to have health insurance and they were paying for it anyway, and it was no good. Obamacare was a disaster. Obamacare is too expensive. The premiums are too high. It's a total disaster. You're going to have new health care. And the pre-existing condition aspect of it will always be in my plan. And I've said that loud and clear.
But you haven't come up with it.
And we got rid of the individual mandate, which essentially ended Obamacare. And I had a decision.
Only because you're arguing
George,
for it.
I had a decision to make. Do I run? We gutted out the worst parts of Obamacare. Now I have to make this decision. This is 3 years ago. Do we run Obamacare well and do a good job and do the best, even though it's never going to be very good? Or do we let it run badly? Probably letting it run badly would have been a better political decision, but I couldn't do that. We have run it so much better than Obama ran it. Now, it's not the same because I got rid of the most unpopular thing and a very unfair thing.
You're trying to strike down the whole law.
He better be striking the whole damn thing down.
We also have now other, if you go Department of Labor, our great secretary, as you know, and you know him well, we have other alternatives to Obamacare that are 50% less expensive and that are actually better.
It's been 3.5 years.
George, it's been 40 years since you had good health care. You never really had good health care in this country. This country has never had it. But when you say that Biden doesn't want to do it, everybody else does. Bernie does. He agreed to the manifesto, as I call it. The agreement with Bernie is that you're going to go to socialized medicine.
He ran against
If you go to socialized medicine, well, he agreed.
Such a smart. Shut up, Stephen.
Today said Harris Biden because he thinks she's president. Harris, and someday you'll have to explain that one to me, but Harris is all for doing that. She wants to go to socialized medicine. So you no longer have your doctor really, and you no longer have your plan. And Joe can say all he wants. He's only doing it because he sees his poll numbers going down so substantially. But Joe can say all he wants about health care. You know, Obamacare has been a failure from day one. It's too expensive, whether it's the premium or whether it's the cost generally. And they don't have their doctors and they don't have their plans. We're going to have a very good health care. I think maybe a great health care for less money.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here.
George Stephanopoulos, he thinks he's smarter than the president. All the people that condescend on the president, no matter who it is kind of dumb to me. Like, really. Like, as if this short twink could really become president himself. No.
Alexander Standing from Pittsburgh sat out the last presidential election, I believe.
Unfortunately, so I did. Good evening, Mr. President. So, I'd like to ask regarding your recent comments about our United States soldiers and referring to them as suckers.
It's fake news.
Could you say that again?
Our United States soldiers, referring to them as suckers, and particularly the late John McCain, our prisoners of war, as losers.
Okay. It was a fake statement.
And
go ahead.
Recently requesting to ban amputee veterans from a military parade. How do you expect to win back the support of our military, their families, their friends, and military supporters?
It's easy, because I never made those statements. They were never made by me. They said I stood over the grave of soldiers killed many years ago, and I said they were suckers. I never made that. You know, we had 26 people as of today come out to say it never happened, and many people were there. Then they said about the rain didn't happen, and that wasn't the reason. The Secret Service said, we have a statement from them, they said that we could not travel because the helicopter couldn't be used. We would not be able to travel. Because when you do that through a major city, it takes them days to get it prepared. I wanted to go anyway. I said, let me just go separately in a car in disguise. I don't care. I wanted to be there so badly. But the statements never happened. They were lies. As far as John McCain, I was never a fan of John McCain. I never thought he treated our vets well. He didn't do the job.
Base! Call him out.
And I think that's fine.
John McCain's a tumor.
Screw him. I said it to his face. I was very much up on that. But as far as
he's not a war hero,
I have done so much.
He's not a war hero.
For our vets and for our military. I rebuilt our military. Our military, when I came into this great office, Our military was depleted. It was in the worst shape it was in probably ever. It was depleted. The planes were old and broken, the ships, everything. You see what I've done. I've rebuilt $2.5 trillion. And you think that was easy getting that money from Democrats? Because they don't like the military. This magazine came up. They made up this quote. It was a made-up quote. And, you know, the gloves are off with Biden, who I've never respected greatly. I've never respected him greatly. But when they took this made-up quote that was now knocked out by over 25 people, and they made an ad out of it, I thought it was a disgrace. Do you know what disinformation is? That's what it was. They made up a phony quote, and then they went with it. It was a phony deal. And the one who started it was a big friend of President Obama and Clinton. And it was a phony deal from a not very successful magazine.
Mr. President, you have used language like that in the past. You did say that John McCain wasn't a war hero, and notably silent in the wake of this article were General John Kelly, who was your chief of staff at the time. General James Mattis, who served as defense secretary for you, has said you're...
They didn't hear me say that.
Has said you're... Well, I'm getting to a broader point.
Because I never said
with the generals. General Mattis said you're a divider, you're not trying to unite the country. General Kelly said he agreed with that. John Bolton, who was your national security advisor, said you're a danger.
Everybody hates those three people now.
Military positions who serve most closely with you.
Oh, they seem John Bolton.
How do you respond to that?
These are people that I let go. These are disgruntled former employees, to put it in a nice way.
Exactly.
People would understand. Mattis was a highly overrated general, didn't do a job, didn't do good on ISIS.
The Mad Dog had rabies.
Of the ISIS caliphate. I had the people that I wanted in. Mattis was fired, as you know, by President Obama, and I fired him also.
He says he resigned.
He didn't resign. I said, give me a letter. No more. Give me a letter. I was being nice. One of the problems when you're nice, oftentimes it comes back to hit you. I said, Jim, give me a letter. It's time for you to move on. He gave me a letter, but I fired him. That's called, I fired him.
You're fired.
General Mattis didn't do the job.
You're fired.
Happy with him. If you look at John Bolton, all he wanted to do is blow people up. He wanted to go to war with everybody. And frankly, I used him very nicely. I bring him into a room in a negotiation. When people saw them, they said, oh, wow, he's going to go to war. I'm bringing our troops back from Afghanistan. I'm bringing our troops back from Iraq. We're almost out of almost every place. You know, everybody said, because of my personality, they said he'll be in a war immediately. Look at North Korea, how that's worked out. We haven't, the sanctions are on, everything's the same. We haven't spent anything. We're getting along with them. I get along with Kim Jong-un. That was supposed to be a war. If President Obama were president, if Hillary Clinton never got in, that would be a war. We would have a war, probably a nuclear war with North Korea. In the meantime, I'm getting calls all the time from friends of mine in South Korea. Thank you. We love you. Thank you. It's really been rather amazing. So instead of wars, everybody said, look at what we had today with the United Arab Emirates and UAE, and just take a look at what happened with Israel today. With that, take a look at what's going on. If that was going to be a problem. We're actually creating peace in the Middle East without blood staining our sand. So but look at what happened with Bahrain.
Jim Mattis.
George, look at today what happened with Bahrain. Look at what, well, a guy like Jim Mattis would have disagreed with the way I went about it, and I've turned out to be correct. Tom Friedman of the New York Times wrote incredible glowing articles last week about this incredible thing that I've been able to do in the Middle East. A guy like Jim Mattis could have never done it because they were all doing it the old-fashioned way. They were going in the wrong outlets and the wrong doors. And what happened today with UAE and with Bahrain and with Israel, people don't even believe it. And George, as sure as you're sitting there, I have numerous other countries in that region that are going to be signing very soon also. You'll have peace in the Middle East. And this is without war and without losing, and I'm talking about on both sides, but without losing our great young soldiers.
Perfect.
You know, I go to Dover.
Great response so far.
Oftentimes soldiers coming in and they're dead. And there's no sadder thing than to sit with a widow or a mother and watch these big, massive cargo planes, and that back opens up, and these incredible Marines are walking off a casket, and they were killed in the Middle East, and in many ways, nobody even knows why. Going there was the worst decision in the history of our country. We've spent $8 trillion, and we've lost, thousands of lives, but really millions of lives, because I view both sides, okay, if that's okay. Millions of lives. This was the worst decision. And by the way, Iraq did not Saddam Hussein did not knock down the World Trade Center, in case you don't know, and I'm sure you do know that. They said they had weapons of mass destruction. They made a mistake. So we're now $8 trillion. We've been in there for 20 years, almost 20 years. In Afghanistan, I guess it's getting very close to that. It's over 19. And we're bringing our soldiers back home. Nobody expected that from me. And people are so happy about it. And you know who's the happiest of soldiers? I see them all the time. What do you think? Should we be here? No, sir, you shouldn't be here. Why? They don't like us, sir. And I'll tell you what, I've rarely met a soldier that's over there. They're better than anybody, because they can tell you better than anybody what's happening. Rarely do I meet a soldier that says we should be there. It was the worst mistake, the most costly mistake in the history of our country.
Yeah, use antidotes. That's smart. Most soldiers want us to pull out.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
Most of the people there want us to pull out. The Muslims want us to pull out, okay? Good rhetoric, anti-war rhetoric. That's pretty good. Alright, so that's that one. Let's move on. Hold on. Alright, on to the next one. Let's go.
Alexander J. Floyd of Dallas, Pennsylvania. He voted for President Trump last time around.
Hello, Mr. Trump. My question is actually about police reform, and how can we balance common sense police reform without sacrificing public safety in a time when, part of the country is calling to defund the police and actively cheering when they're gunned down in the street, and another part is tired of seeing the lawlessness?
So we have a great senator named Tim Scott from South Carolina, and he had a plan that was very much of a compromise plan, but it was a plan that everybody pretty much agreed to. A lot of Democrats agreed to it, but they wouldn't vote for it. And it was it was a compromise of a lot of different factors. And it didn't get done, and it should have gotten done. And it could still be out there, it could still be resurrected very easily, but they just didn't want to do it. Because I think the Democrats are viewing this as a political issue, and I probably agree with them. I think it's very bad for them, because we're about law and order. We have to be about law and order, otherwise you're going to see your cities burn. And that's the way it is. If we can do a plan like Tim Scott's plan, which is really, it goes far enough, but it doesn't take the dignity away from our police. We have incredible people. They've been protecting us for a long time. I mean, we're here, and I feel very safe being in this room. These are great people. We can't take their dignity away. We have to let them be able to do what they do better than anybody else. So I think we have to look at it that way. We have to be very, very careful. Police are so afraid today that they do something slightly wrong, and their pension's gone, their job's gone, who knows what happens. Their life is ruined. Their wife or their husband will leave. The whole thing, it's a very scary thing to do. And then you look at safety. I mean, you look at that horrible human being that shot these two police, cold blank right next, just a disgusting, and then ran off. You look at that, this is a very tough job, and it's a very unsafe job. It's a very dangerous job. We have to give them back their dignity, and we have to give them back respect. These are great people for the most part. There's always going to be a bad apple in your business, in my business, no matter what. I mean, there's going to be bad apples, so we have to weed out the bad apples. But we have to give the police back that strength that they had a short while ago, and that they have in Republican cities, frankly, and states. But you take a look. This is a Democrat problem, George. I know you're a Democrat, but this is largely a Democrat problem. If you just take a look at the list, every Democrat city, almost, not all, but a lot of them, certainly in the top 25, even if you go to the top 50, almost every city is run by the Democrats. People don't respect our police, and they have to respect them.
You promised 4 years ago at the Republican convention, I'm going to restore law and order.
And I have, except in Democrat-run cities. Look, we have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that, even in a Portland case. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor. If a governor or a mayor is a Democrat, and like in Portland, we call them constantly. I just spoke to the governor yesterday because we're giving them relief on the fires. We're giving them an emergency declaration. I said, Governor, let us go in and we'll clean up Portland so fast. In a half an hour, it'll be all right. And she's just torn by it. I don't understand the thinking, but they're torn by it. I have a lot of respect for the governor. Frankly, in what happened in Minneapolis was pretty amazing. Unfortunately, this went on for a week or a week and a half before he allowed us to bring in the National Guard. When we brought in the National Guard, everything stopped. The crime was gone, meaning the whole thing. But by that time, a big portion of the city was burned down. We're talking about Minneapolis. In Seattle, we let them know we're coming in. They took over a big chunk of the city, 20% of the city. We said we're coming in. As soon as we said that, the police department went in, and these other people were exhausted. But had we not said we're going in, we were ready to go in. We were going in the following morning. Wherever you have a Democrat city, not in all cases, but if you look at the really troubled cities in our country, they're Democrat run, and that's Biden. They're weak, they're ineffective.
You're president for those cities right now.
I'm president, but I can only do what I'm allowed to do, George. I don't need insurrection. I don't need an insurrection act to take care of 250 anarchists. We can do that very easily with the National Guard. We proved that in Minneapolis. They came in after the city was burning. And the thing I don't really get is that the news media is saying, no, these are peaceful, these are peaceful. And right over the reporter was a CNN reporter, right over his shoulder, and you saw that, right over his shoulder, the city is burning. It looked like it was Berlin during the war. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And he's trying to say, I don't know why the news media tries to make so light of it. These are not protests. These are far greater than protests.
Great rhetoric so far. All right. Solid performance by our great President Donald Trump. All right. Another question about the China virus, as some people like to say it.
A question that comes from Ashley west of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania.
Hi, Mr. Trump.
Hi, Ashley.
Sorry. My question is, what has been the most difficult part of your presidency, and what have you learned from it?
So I think without question, I would say, because things were going so well, I think I'd have to say the whole COVID, the China virus, as I call it, because it comes from China. I think it's a much more accurate term. But it's been very difficult. It's been so sad. As an example, talking to you about your mother, it's just such a sad situation. Yeah, we're getting there. We will get there. We're going to. It's going to happen. But it's been a very difficult. Nobody's seen anything like this probably since 1917.
What did you learn from it?
I learned that life is very fragile. I knew people that were powerful people, strong people, good people, and they got knocked out by this and died. 6 people. It was 5 until about 2 weeks ago. Now it's 6. But I've learned that life is very fragile because these were strong people, and all of a sudden they were dead. They were gone. And it wasn't their fault. It was the fault of a country that could have stopped it. And I made a great trade deal with China. But it was a whole. I feel so differently about that deal now. It's a great deal. It was good for the farmers, good for the manufacturers, but I don't view it the same way. It was good for us, but I don't view it the same way because of the horror of this disease that really could have been stopped at the border.
Could you have done more to stop it?
I don't think so. I think what I did by closing up the country, I think I saved 2, maybe 2.5, maybe more than that lives. I really don't think so. I think we did a very good job. I don't know if that's been recognized. We've made a lot of governors feel good. We've made some reputationally, we've enhanced their reputation. They didn't have anything. We got them the supplies, we got them the ventilators. We've made a lot of people look good that shouldn't look good, to be honest with you.
We're out of time, Mr. President. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to all the questioners here. Thanks to all of you.
All right, so that was the town hall, apparently. All right. Okay, now on to the last question over here. We have a question about U.S. citizenship.
Pennsylvania, she has not voted before because she just became a citizen.
Oh, very good.
Thank you so much. Hi, Mr. President, Mr. George. Hi, everyone. My name is Flor Cruzeta. Sorry if I can't hold my tears.
What you just did.
I came in 2006 with my mom from Dominican Republic. Sorry.
I was wondering what she was. Jesus, she looks like Asian and black and like, oh my god. What? Hurry up.
That's all right, and just take your time, that's fine. George has plenty of time, I hope, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Did you say your mom got COVID?
We come from Dominican Republic in 2006 to live our American dream. But she forgot how to take care of herself. And she died last month.
What a useless question, dude.
Okay.
Jesus Christ. Get it together. Like, okay, your mom died and you're sad, but like, don't ask a question if you're gonna break down.
Make metastasis on her brain, bone, and lungs. She passed on the 19. One of her biggest dreams was to become a citizen to vote, and she did. She did 10 days before she died, and I did it too. She pushed me so hard to do it, and I did it this past 28. I'm here because of her. She was supposed to be here and ask you and thank you for the stage you take during this epidemic. You made people closer. We lost our job, but we learned how to love our family. So I'm saying that from her.
Very nice.
Her question for you was, because she wrote this question, what will you do for our immigration system? What would you change to make more people like me and like her to become citizens and vote?
So we are doing
I don't want to
something
help you
with
vote.
immigration that I think is going to be very
You're gonna vote Democrat.
because we want people to come into our country, people like you and like your mother. And that just shows how vicious the COVID is, especially when you have another problem. You have a heart problem or another type of a problem. And it's a very sad story. But we want people to come into our country. We want them to come in, a lot of people, but we want them to come in through a legal system, through a system that they love our country, they work to come into our country, a merit system. And we're working on something very hard right now, and in a very short time we're going to be announcing it, and I think it's going to have quite an impact. I think it's going to be something that actually will be popular for all. I mean, as far as your situation with your mother, that is just devastating, because I can imagine how you feel. And sounds like a great woman, and I'll tell you, I'm pretty good with people. She gave us a great daughter, a great child. What she's done with you, the way you are, the love that you have for your mother, I can see that. It's hard. And so many people, and they die alone. They die alone because this is such a vicious thing. You can't go there and hold their hand. You can't give them a kiss goodnight. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And hopefully the vaccines are going to be very soon. Hopefully. Did you have COVID? You didn't have it, right? No. You didn't have it, your mother. We'll have it taken care of. It's going to get taken care of. The vaccines are going to make a big difference. What has made a big difference is remdesivir. We have many things now, and things are going to be announced which frankly, if you take a look at some of the things we're doing in terms of, the word wouldn't be cure, but the word would be therapeutically or therapeutics. We have some incredible things happening, which is so important. And I view that actually in a certain way as more important than the vaccine, where you can go into a hospital and get your mother and give her a transfusion or a shot, and they can get better much faster. So we have some of those things, and they've been very, very successful, but we have others coming out. And in order to get them, we had to get the FDA to approve this product, these, very sophisticated medicines, and I guess you could call them a medicine, but we had to get them approved very quickly, and they did it. Dr. Hahn, the head of the FDA, Alex Azar, they've really done a fantastic job. I believe, George, that none of this would have happened in another administration. And I think you know that. The FDA is approving things at a level that they've never done, and at speed with which they've never acted before. Hi, everyone.
All right, pretty great response for that last question over here, and that concludes this town hall. As you can see in this town hall, he had to go through a lot of questions, and clearly, it's pretty difficult to think on the spot how to answer these with no script. unlike Joe Biden that has a script. But the fact still stands that that he answered all these pretty well. There might have been a couple where he was mediocre, and I just noticed that he has a problem with answering questions in a way that is good in the beginning and good at the end. He's usually better at the end than he is in the beginning of answering the question. And he comes across as very egocentric in the way that he thinks. But with that last Dominican Republic new citizen, he showed emotion, he showed empathy, which is good because he is a leader, but he's seen as heartless and as a dictator. So for him to show a little bit of emotion, just a little bit, I think could win him over some votes. And him being relatively articulate for about an hour straight is a good example of what we could see in the debates, where he's going to completely outclass Joe Biden in the use of the English language. So anyways, guys, I would rate this town hall a 7 or 8 out of 10 for Trump. Some call this a mixed bag or a complete ambush or whatever. You know, of course, A.B.C. screwed him over. George Stephanopoulos is a smart aleck, and people are saying that he messed this up. Of course not. Look at what happened. They said these were going to be uncommitted voters. Uncommitted voters? What? Are you crazy? A Green Party voter that's uncommitted? No, of course not. That's definitely a lefty, a socialist. So guys, what do you think? Rate this out of 10. How good was the town hall performance by the president? I rate it at 7 or an 8. I'll put it at a 7 for now. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Here's hoping we see a one-on-one in-person debate in the next couple weeks. Goodbye.